We should be loud and clear now coming through, both through Zoom. Thank you for joining us for this on tonight. If you're connecting through Zoom or connecting through either LinkedIn or YouTube tonight, there's going live on all those different channels. So tonight it's all about crafting your clear message for impactful public speaking. Let me just get back to there and get on with the show. So the impact of a clear message is all about having a power of clarity. So it's talking about an impactful delivery because clarity means your message gets through. It means that whatever you're saying, it's not just going to be a case of, oh, yes, here's a bunch of words, a word salad. And I've been to so many webinars that have been like that, just lots of jargon, lots of word salad. But you're also going to get this clarity of message, the ability to be able to really have it understood what you're saying. But we're also talking about clarity being something that helps the concept to be retained, to be remembered, to be memorable even. And this is incredibly important in today's teaching environment, particularly when you are speaking to large audiences in a conference situation, or even if you're speaking on a webinar through to university students, or right now like to LinkedIn like I am. You want to make sure that the message is not just impactful and gets people right where they're at, but it's something they can recall, particularly if you're teaching, if you're bringing new information, or you're trying to empower people to do something better, something bigger, something grander with their lives or with their businesses. You do want to make sure that you are super clear about that, because people won't retain that. And there's no point of people becoming workshop junkies where they're constantly turning up to hear people speak about things, to train people about things, only to find that those same people are all just, I suppose they are all just, not retaining a thing. They're not learning anything. They're not moving forward. And we want to avoid that as public speakers and presenters. But there's another power of clarity there, which is the audience connection. And I've left that one deliberately blank simply because connection is going to be formed through many things, not just being clear. It's also about storytelling. It's about the gravitas of you as a personality, whether people actually like you. Not everyone's going to like me, and not everyone's going to like you as well, but a lot of people will like you. And that will come because your message isn't just charismatic that you can get out to 1,000 people and have them love you, but it's also that they understand you. And that's where the power of clarity really lives. Clarity then comes as you're crafting your clear message from one core message. So when you're going into a keynote speech, like a TED talk or a conference keynote, something like that, you need to focus on one key idea. What you don't want to do is bring out an academic presentation that's presenting 30 different theories, referring to 50 different footnotes. It doesn't become memorable. It may work in a peer-reviewed academic circle, perhaps, where that is the audience you're speaking to. But most of us aren't doing that. What we're mostly doing is speaking to individual people, everyday people working their jobs, earning their money, paying their bills, building their businesses, just everyday average people, right? So what we need to do is to give them something they can grasp onto, one key idea. And if you think back to any of the great speakers of the past 100 years that we know of, they tended to have this concept of the one key idea. They didn't come to us with 1,000 different messages in each thing that they presented. Even a church preacher or a pastor in a church, or an imam in a mosque will be the same thing. There's one key idea that they'll be bringing towards you. This helps you then to be able to distill all the ideas you have, all the things you have, into this one concise, impactful message, because clarity is simplicity. Less is more just simply means that the less scattered thoughts you've got and that one clear thought you have, you want that because it just makes everything hit that much more deeply and more personally as well. And that's ultimately what you want as a public speaker, or as a presenter, or as a teacher, or as a trainer. It's all the same kind of stuff. Now, I know in teaching, that one clear message for one particular module or one particular lecture is really hard to achieve. But when you think about it, you teach modules that have one core discipline to them, or one core topic to them. So why do we want this one key message? Because of audience retention. They remember one thing. You remember going and seeing Gary Vaynerchuk, and he talks about this one thing, which is all about taking control of your life and putting yourself out there, right? Or it could be Oprah. It's all about empowering yourself, loving yourself. You think of Tony Robbins, which is all about unleashing the power within to be able to overcome all the obstacles in your life. They are memorable because they don't really talk about a million different things. They have one message, one clear message. That means then that you need that one message. It makes your presentations very clear. It makes those presentations. So I got crows outside just making loud noises. So the presentation clarity, it really helps you to simplify that message because you want that message to be retained. And it also has a clearer impact at the time. It's amazing a feeling you get when you are standing on a stage and you're telling a story, you're relating a learning, and there's people who are just staring up at you with their mouths wide open because they're taking in that information, not because they're in awe of you. And that's rarely the case that they're ever in awe of us. I'm not Taylor Swift, or I'm not Robbie Williams or anything like that. But what we are is somebody who's imparting knowledge. And when you see that knowledge hitting people, you can see it on their faces. But that's only when you have that one clear message. Now, what do we do to define what that message is? We've got to work out what our main point is, right? And that one clear, memorable sentence. I like this, the one-liner. What is the one-liner that someone can say about you? So, for instance, one of my favorite people I follow online is Justin Welsh. And I know that a one-liner I could make about him would be, he helps people in their one-person businesses to be able to scale their businesses to millions. And that's what he does. Dan Coe, another one of the guys that I follow closely online. What would I say? His one clear, memorable sentence? It is helping people to create one-person businesses that go beyond what they could have done in multiple-person businesses. What you could speak about with Brene Brown is how to understand the power of vulnerability to be able to empower yourself to be truthful and honest and more impactful. That would be a one clear, memorable sentence we could say. I could have several clear sentences about myself even, but that's something you need to come together with. What is your one clear sentence? And then what is the one clear sentence you could use for that particular lesson or that particular talk that you're giving? If you had to wrap it up in just like in an Eventbrite event where you got a little summary and then you got a big description, I'm thinking about the little summary. What is that one sentence that you could say about what you are talking about wrapped up in that? Because that's what people are going to read more than the full description. We'll spend hours getting that description right. The reality is the summary, the introduction, the little blip that shows in the thumbnail of the event. That's what people read, and many people don't read beyond that. They just make the decision based upon that. So if you're really clear about what people are going to learn, they'll come in with an expectation of learning that. They won't come in with an expectation of learning the great secrets of life. But your message is also the heart, the core of your presentation. And this main point gives you a heart. It gives you a core from which other things can go around. You can build a core. So you say, okay, here's our topic. We're going to approach this in 3 ways. 1, 2, 3. But you still need that core topic. So what is the core topic you're going into? I'm going to be speaking at a festival called Ripple Festival in Melbourne in November. And I'm just starting to put together those things. I'm speaking about LinkedIn. I'm speaking about AI and about ethics in using AI as well. So what would be my concise sentence? What's the core of that presentation? And it quite often with myself would be my approach to that topic. Not just I am speaking about AI. I'd say I am speaking about how to use AI to work 10 times faster, produce 10 times more, and make 10 times more money. Look, that's not the topic I'm talking about, but that would be the core of my presentation that becomes then that concise sentence. So an example core message could be as simple as, our tool simplifies your daily tasks. So you look at that and go, what is that? Now, this is the killer tactic in that core message. It's all about, can somebody tell what you're going to be talking about, what you're doing, what your product is, based upon that clear, very core message? So if they say our tool simplifies your daily task, what would you assume is the kind of product being talked about? What is that product? Our tool simplifies your daily task. To me, I would say that's probably an app, right? It's probably a piece of software that simplifies your daily task, probably a calendar app. And that is that our tool simplifies your daily tasks comes from the sales message I picked up from my calendar software that I bought ages ago called Motion. It's Motion. Great product. Really love it. Use it all across the day, every single day of the week. It runs my life. But that was the message that I went to. And our tool simplifies your daily task. Oh gosh, I could use that. I've got a very complicated day and a very complicated life. So I need that. So that's what a core message does. It distills everything down to the point where you can go, this is what she is speaking about. This is what he is speaking about. This is what they are speaking about. So the audience then becomes who you need to be very clear to, because clarity for one audience is not clarity for the others. So you really need to know who you're talking to. If you have a room full of female entrepreneurs who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, who are starting their very first solo businesses, and they have no idea what they're doing, they're really just struggling to get some idea of how to approach business, then you're not going to talk to them about business model canvases and the triple bottom line and the 5 Ps of business. Like, you're not going to go into deep marketing theory and business growth theory. What you're going to do is go, what do they need? How do they want to move forward? What is it that they need to move forward with? So when you know your audience, you know how to make that little message stick. Let's just say if we are talking to those female entrepreneurs who are just starting the new businesses, I wouldn't then go and say, learn the 5 Ps and be able to accelerate your marketing to grow your business into 6 figures, because that to me sounds really disingenuous. What I would say is how to build the business of your dreams while not selling your soul. That would be the core of the message I'd make for that audience. Now, if I was speaking to a bunch of 25-year-old guys who are mostly from non-English speaking backgrounds, but they're highly entrepreneurial and they got pressure on them from all around their family to do more with their lives now that they've graduated from university, I might be a little more directional. So I might be a little bit more like, disappointing your parents, we can solve that just by doing these 3 things. And that to them will be 3 things. I can grab that, because guys are very task oriented, right? So you're tailoring that message, you're tailoring that core message to address their needs. What do they need to do? They need to not be the shame of their family, or they need to be able to break through the barriers that women in entrepreneurship seem to have in front of them more so than what men do. Or they need to get through that point of making that first client and making that first dollar in their business. So you're addressing the needs of that particular audience. So when you're connecting with that audience, you can only understand them if you actually understand them, which is knowing what they care about, knowing what problems they face. I was just saying that, perhaps they're international students who have graduated, who have a lot of pressure coming on them from home about, they've got to get married, they've got to have kids, they've got to have this great job, they've got to have a successful business, they've got to have so much going on by the time they're 30 that it's burning them out, because they can't seem to get all that together. So how would I know that? Because I asked them, right? What problems they face, you need to know those people. You cannot just assume what those problems are. Me speaking to female entrepreneurs, I would need to then go and see all the female entrepreneurs that I know and talk to them about what their problems are before I have any position writing any sort of material that's going to be targeted towards them, or let alone a speech that hundreds of them could be there to watch. And then you provide some solutions. How can you help? You're linking the interests they have with the challenges they have with a solution. So you get them in with the interest. You definitely get their trust once you show you really understand the challenges they face, and then the solution can come into it. But what a lot of us tend to do, we just come out and say, basically, here's my great theory of life, here's my great solution, buy my book, sign up for my community, and your whole speech is just basically a sales spiel. And I think all of us have been in a conference where somebody's speech was exactly that. It was very unhinged because it went straight to a sales spiel. I've heard it so many times when people have said, coming out of a conference, that it was about 45 minutes of selling and about 15 minutes of value. That's what you want to try and avoid, particularly if you are a business owner or you're speaking on behalf of a business. It can be very tempting to go into solutions orientation, when really what you need to do is respond to the interests of that audience, actually know what challenges they face, because that really gets their attention. And then towards the end, you'll deliver that solution. But you have to first earn that position. So the structure you want to use is pretty much that standard structure you'll find of speeches, of books, of essays from when we were kids. It's an intro that comes with a very strong hook. Now, when we're writing essays as children in high school, our hooks weren't so much hooks, they were more so a summary, an upfront summary. And in fact, the intro and the conclusion on an essay were often the same set of sentences, right? The same couple of paragraphs or one paragraph that just produced, this is what I'm going to say, and now I'm going to prove it. And then you go at the end of that and you say, now I've proved it, this is what I have to say. I'll just repeat that. We get a bit more clever with that when we're doing a speech. We need a strong hook, a very strong opening statement that could be, it could be a fact, a really interesting fact. It could be a statistic. I love going in with statistics because they get people thinking in the terms of, wait, how does that work? That can't be right. It sort of gives them a cognitive dissonance, which wakes people up and gets them ready for it. Or it could be the end of a story. It could be the conclusion of the story, and you go, and now I'm going to show you how we got there. So that could be, Kathy Freeman winning the 400 meters at the 2000 Sydney Olympics. And that could be the way she opens. And then she said, but, that's the highlight that everyone sees. What they didn't see was all the work that led up to that. Let me share with you what it took to get from little Kathy in the outback in Mount Isa to the world champion and a gold medalist. So that becomes a really strong hook. Your body really just is the supporting points of that. So how are you then backing up what you've made a claim about in that opening sentence or that opening couple of sentences you've used in your speech? So that strong hook draws them in, gets them really, really interested because now they want to see and hear what you just promised, which was the story of how you got there. Or it could be the 3 points that you're going to use. 3 points is a really good structure when you're going into the body. 3 just strong points, which you can back up with data, with experience, or with other people's opinions that match yours as well. Your conclusion really at the end of it is kind of like a callback. So if you had a strong opening statistic in your intro, you can come back and say, well, now you can see why that 37% of people don't like the news. But just imagine how much we could get that number down if only we did those 3 things. Give them news that they're interested in, speak to it in a language they understand, and third, don't try to trick them. And that's what a conclusion is. So there's a lot more onto that, and we're going to cover a lot more of that in future webinars as well. We'll break down a speech into the intro, the body, and the conclusion right in front of you as I write a script for it. That's putting myself under pressure, that's for sure. So the intro really is that, like I said, strong start, engage people, introduce the topic so that people understand what that core message is. If the ad is on the conference saying this is what you're talking about, you want to make people feel like, oh, good, okay, she is talking about that. That's fantastic. We're not coming in with a strange surprise that they weren't expecting or an unpleasant one. Your body is developing that message out. Now, that could be backing up your claims using examples, or it could be presenting some kind of scientific evidence that supports what you're saying. Quite often, I find the most interesting ones are, this is why I've got this theory, and here is my story that supports that. The conclusion is all about making it stick. That's the bit that's going to make it memorable, right? So you can see how having a very core message to begin with makes it so much easier to make that conclusion stick. What you're really doing is going, well, here's the key points summarized. You restate whatever the main point was, and then you encourage the next step. So this could be a next step of, so go out there and make the world a better place. Or it could be, well, go onto my website and download my free ebook to get started on the way to you succeeding. Or it could be, now all you need to do is just go out there and step on the stage and be this yourself. In fact, stand up right now, shake your legs, and give yourself a big hoy. And then that could be your way of calling people into action. So it usually means that, yes, you're going to summarize what you just said into a very, very quick, simple sentence. Restate how that proves your core message. You're not saying, and therefore, and in conclusion, we want to kind of avoid that. We're not ChatGPT, right? And then that call to action is just, what are people supposed to do next? What do you want them to do next? What is helpful for them to do next? Now, your language will matter because simplicity in clear and simple English will really help you out here. When you start adding in jargon and you're not in an industry function, you're not in an academic environment, or you're not in a room full of engineers and you're an engineer as well, technical terms are not your friend. So consider that most times when you're speaking, you will not be talking to those people. But when you are, bring in the jargon. But when you're not, drop all the jargon. So if you've got in talk, in language that you use, drop all that and explain it to people. And someone does this really well. It's a social media marketing podcast where Michael Stelzner, the host of that, he questions his guests when they say something he knows that his audience may not understand. So there's a MSA, the guest that was talking about, they were talking about an MSA. And he's like, well, just stop there for a sec. What's an MSA? And I was like, I'm glad you asked that, mate, because I have no idea what that is. And it was something to do with a service agreement, a wide, just some kind of service agreement that a business would use. And I was like, never knew that existed. Great. And I've got how many businesses now? It's like terms of service and terms and conditions of working with you. So that makes sense to me. Now I can move on and I can actually retain things, because you do not move on and you do not take up all the points in a speech, in a lesson, in a book. And if you don't understand something very vital that was introduced to you earlier, you get stuck there. You don't move on. And if you do move on, there's always this little splinter in your brain going back to that thing, because you never had the satisfaction of understanding what it was. Language that is concise, short, sharp sentences are far easier for people to retain. Just in the way of when you say writing a LinkedIn post, you would have that same thing coming up as well. Now, repetition is key. This is a really good way of making sure that people truly understand what your points are. And this is very useful in where your main points are in the body of your speech. Repeating that message over and over and over. There's something oh gosh, I just forgot her name, but she's a major, and I wrote about her last week. She is a major activist in Pakistan for women, and she got shot and she survived. She got shot in the head and survived. Has gone on to be a much more powerful voice since then. For she has a way of repeating statements to emphasize. So in her case, it was, we call on the government to this. We call on the government to this. We call on the government to this. And that helped people to understand this was important. Now, she didn't call on the government 3 times for the same thing. There were 3 related things that she was calling on the government to recognize. That repetition is almost like neuro-linguistic programming in a way. It really helps, like hypnosis, I guess, to get that point in, for you to sink it into the brain. Then you reinforce those key points. So if you've got a very strong message you're making, reinforce it, back it up, and then you can enhance that to improve audience retention. So repetition is a really strong tool where you repeat that main point right throughout your speech. And like I said, I will do a live writing of say a 10-minute conference speech on a topic that I'll just pull out of thin air to show you how to use these tools such as repetition and how to reinforce those points. So it'll be in a future webinar coming in the following weeks. Storytelling then, that is the way to tie very repetitive things and very technical things and some things that may be very unrelatable to make them super relatable. Storytelling, which is just essentially just taking things out of your life or other people's lives that you apply to back up your points in the main part of your presentation. That's where you get truly engaging, because it captures the audience's attention like facts and figures simply can't. A story will always cut through to the heart when maybe the facts are failing to cut through to the brain. Then they also illustrate your points. They give an example, they give an analogy, a metaphor, some way of imagining how that works in real life, particularly when you're talking about statistics, or you're talking about big numbers, or you're talking about technical concepts. When you bring it down to, this is how I approached it, this is how I like to think about it, that makes it so much easier to understand. And of course, it makes it very memorable, because you want people to remember that stuff. Your visual aids then are kind of like this afterthought we think of later. And they need to be very simple. Now, I don't have huge amounts of words on my visual aids here. I don't, because the main story is what I'm telling, not in what's on the screen. So in the case of these visual aids, you look at, well, they just support what you're saying. They are not a distraction to it. What you don't want is people constantly looking at the screen trying to take screenshots of things, because the real information, the real learning is up there on the screen. What you want is people learning through what they're hearing. And there's a whole lot of other techniques to teaching and education which you can use to better have people learn more, retain more, and taking notes, or using AI transcribers or any of those sort of things that can help with that. But really, your visual aids should be super simple. As you see on all these, they're very simple. No more than 3 points on any page. Look, three, three, three. Everything's in threes, and the graphics are very simple, and in some cases quite abstract. They don't really say anything. Like, for instance, this image that's on here has nothing to do with storytelling, but I liked it because I thought it matched somebody who might be telling a story in a speech. And then the visual aids, yeah, just use them as a support. They are not the speech. They are not the presentation. You are the presentation. So if we go and do a few takeaways from this, I'd say that one core message is something that everyone should work on well before they start writing a speech or thinking of how they will structure their speech. Understanding what that one core message is brings everything together. But you get that one core message from understanding who it is you're speaking to. Are they business owners? Are they students? Are they just everyday people trying to get by? Who are the people, and what are their problems? What are their challenges? And what are they interested in? And then the clear delivery of that through uncomplicated graphics on the screen, not big, strong, multiple 50-word slides, none of that kind of crap, because no one understands it and no one retains it. All they do is spend their whole time distracted from the message by trying to take photos of the slides or asking if the slides will be available and to be sent to them afterwards. So just that clear delivery is just keeping things simple. So it's really easy to understand. I know that you've probably talked about this thing that you're going to talk about a million times. You understand it. It sounds boring and repetitive to you, but your audience are going to be hearing this for the very first time. So we need to respect that. So that brings us to the end now. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. This will be available on YouTube afterwards, because it's now been recorded in there. You can find it at, I'll have it on the Darwin Innovation Hub channel, but it's also on my channel, which is just my name basically. So it's youtube.com/at Dante St. James, all one word, and you'll be able to find that. And this is brought to you by the Darwin Innovation Hub and Speakstarter. So thank you to both those organizations for making this possible. Hopefully the live stream worked on YouTube and on LinkedIn as well. If you did manage to go on there, please comment on it below, just so I can let you know. Let me know that you were live and you saw it there as well. If you have any questions, please do see my websites, either through Darwin Innovation Hub or Speakstarter, which is where I handle all the public speaking training. And there'll be many more of these to come. Pretty much every couple of weeks, I'll have a new edition of this to help to unfold what you need to become a better, more confident, and much more impacting public speaker as well. Thank you, and good night.